Hello, I'm Lauren with IndoorGardening.com, and today we want to talk about how to prevent and treat root rot on your plants. Root rot on your plants is when a fungal or bacterial infection gets inside your roots, either because your plant was waterlogged, your plant roots were damaged, something along those lines. It is a bacterial or fungal disease that lives in the soil of your pot. It just lives everywhere. Your plant can normally fight it off, but when it becomes damaged, it gets some type of a cut essentially, then it can struggle a little bit. If your plant doesn't have a good enough immune system to fight it off and push off new growth, if they're struggling with other things, then root rot is something that can take over your plant quite a bit, and it could end up ending your plant, and you won't have that plant anymore because it will have turned into black, disgusting mush, unfortunately. Root rot is something that's a possibility everywhere with every plant depending on the conditions. It's not something that you can entirely avoid, but you can definitely take steps to prevent it. When trying to avoid root rot, prevention is key. Things that you can do to prevent root rot include paying attention to your plant and learning about your plant. You want to learn about your plant's needs. You want to give them the right environment. You want to make sure that you're watering them appropriately. You want to give them the right soil conditions. A lot of times root rot comes when plants are sitting in soil for a long period of time that are very heavily waterlogged, a heavily peat-based soil versus a well-draining mix. A well-draining mix example would be something with perlite mixed in or some type of rocks. You can also do bark, just something to give it a little bit more chunkiness to it and allow little air pockets in there and allow some airflow. A lot of these houseplants out in the wild, they're not sitting in a waterlogged bog. They're sitting in some type of chunky mix. They've got roots in there from other plants. They've got rocks in there. They've got sand in some cases. So you just want to mimic that in your home, because fungal and bacterial diseases cannot survive if it's a well aerated mix. Preventing root rot by making sure that you have a well-draining mix and that you're taking care of your plant the way it should be. Even if your plant were to get some type of root rot, if all the conditions are met for your plant, they'll be able to fight off root rot on their own and you won't even know that they had it. If you cannot prevent root rot, the next best thing is noticing root rot as soon as possible. Pay attention, check your plants on a regular, every couple of days, every day, whatever works best for you. If you don't notice the root rot right away, it can take over your entire plant, and then your plant will have been struggling for a long time. You may not be able to save your plant even if you remove the rot. It may continue, or your entire plant may have been taken over. So checking your plants on a regular, noticing the little signs. If you notice that there are black edges, if you notice that the stems of your plant, especially at the base, is starting to get really mushy and dark, that's another sign of root rot. That's a sign of extensive root rot at that point. Leaf loss is usually the very first sign. So if you see a lot of your leaves turning yellow on your plant, that's definitely a key indicator there. Another key indicator in root rot is if you're watering your plant on a regular, you know that they're getting a good drink of water, or you're watering very frequently, but your plant doesn't seem like it is absorbing the water. If your plant looks like it's still thirsty, even though it's sitting in a puddle of water after a couple of hours and it's not getting more filled, then that is another sign of root rot. Your plant's roots are rotting and they're not able to soak up and absorb the nutrients in the water, and they're not going to be able to sustain themselves. So that's another way for you to tell if you have root rot or not. If you have root rot, all is not lost. You can totally treat it. It is a treatable disease. You just have to get to it quick enough. If you're going to be treating root rot, there are some steps that you can take. First, you want to unpot the plant. You want to remove all of the soil and get a really good look at the roots. You can rinse them all off. If you notice anything that is mushy, anything that is super slimy and gross looking, anything that is super black and not firm, anything along those lines, you definitely want to go ahead and chop that off. You use a clean pair of shears. You can sterilize them and then chop off the rot. And then you want to make sure that you're looking in the center of your roots that you have chopped and making sure that there is no brown in the middle of that, because if there is still brown and grossness, almost like a rotting apple color, then you want to make sure that you're chopping a little bit more of that root, because that's root rot that's still in there. And you just really want to chop it and get rid of it and save your plant. Otherwise, the infection is going to keep on spreading through your plant and then it's going to rot the entire plant. You definitely you gotta get it all cleaned out, and then it will grow and heal back just fine. You will have new roots coming and it will be perfectly fine. Definitely do not skimp on chopping these plants up though, as far as their infected roots go. It's better to take more root and have no infection than it is to leave infection in the roots by mistake, because it will come back, especially while your plant is trying to recover, and that's when the plant probably won't be able to recover. After you are done removing all of the rot, you can even scrape it away. You can go ahead and treat it with hydrogen peroxide. You take a little bit of hydrogen peroxide and kind of wipe it, dilute it with water, and then just kind of wipe it down on there. You can also put hydrogen peroxide and water in a little jar and put your plant in there really quick. Hydrogen peroxide can be very intense depending on how well you dilute it, and it can actually eliminate healthy tissue as well. So you don't want to leave it in there too long. You don't want to just pour a bunch of hydrogen peroxide directly on your plant. You can put it in a spray bottle diluted with water a little bit and then kind of spray it down. However you want to do it, there's various ways, but hydrogen peroxide is the #1 method for treating root rot because it definitely eliminates those germs that cause the disease. After you're done treating your plant with hydrogen peroxide, you want to put it in a recovery zone. This can look very different depending on the particular plant that you're treating and depending on the size of the plant that you're treating. For bigger plants, a recovery zone could just be a chunkier mix and then well watered, put in a high humidity situation. For other smaller plants, it can mean being put in some type of a propagation box. We have a tutorial video on that for you. It can also mean being put in a terrarium situation. It can also mean being put in a smaller pot and put in a greenhouse. But wherever you end up putting it in a recovery zone, make sure it is someplace that you're going to be able to check on it regularly. Probably 1 to 2 times a day for the first week, just to kind of make sure that everything's going good with it. The leaves should start to perk up and it should grow new roots after a couple of days. Ones in a prop box may grow a little bit quicker than ones outside in normal humidity. Humidity always seems to be a healing factor, but you need to keep an eye out for any rot that may reappear. And if rot does reappear, then you just go through the same methods we just talked about again and try again. It happens. Sometimes plants can go 2 or 3 times through a treatment before they end up picking themselves back up and they're okay. They've pushed out enough new growth to really recover and be able to sustain themselves again and push out a good root system again. It just really depends on the plant and the environmental conditions and the extensiveness of the rot. Be patient with your plant. Check on a regular. It's okay. Have some self-compassion for yourself, because a lot of times plants will come into our home rotting, or we'll rot them while we're trying to learn their care. It's a lot of different things going on. But getting root rot for your plant is definitely not something that's going to end them. It's not something that is the end all as soon as it happens. There are definitely steps that you can take. Your plant can still recover, and all is not lost. Hopefully this helped you a little bit. If you need any more information, you can definitely check out indoorgardening.com. We've always got more information there for you, and we're always happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!